Good day. I'm Glenn O'Kray. I would like to welcome you to this session of Through the Arsenal Gates. I'm going to introduce you to people through the years that have either made history, are making history, or will make history. Today we have a special guest, Kayne Karnbach, who is the chair of the Dearborn Historical Commission. Kayne, welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here, Glenn.
Tell us where you were born.
So I was born in Jupiter, Florida, which, for those who don't know, it's about an hour and a half north of Miami on the east coast of Florida.
And where did you do your growing up?
Same place, actually. Yeah, born and raised up until I went to college. So I spent about 25 years primarily there in Jupiter.
Okay. Did you have a significant teacher growing up?
Yeah, I did, actually. So when I was at Florida State University, a professor of mine helped me start a directed independent study, which was kind of the first real writing I'd ever done, the real research and writing I'd ever done. Previously, it was a 10 to 15 page final paper kind of stuff like that. And when I think back on it, he really helped me understand how to research and understand how to write. He was really focused on my progression as a writer, and he gave me a lot of good feedback. He was very patient with me, and that just really sticks with me today. You know, as an adult, I've undertaken writing. I do some writing myself, and I think I'm the writer today because of just how patient he was with me and how much he helped me.
Good. Now, did you have any other significant person in your life growing up?
I mean, yeah, my mom and dad were a major part of my life for sure. But my dad was really kind of the prototypical father that I want to be. I just remember him as someone who he always wanted to have fun. He loved me and my sister, was just so engaged in our lives. He just was like a big kid, you know, and even in the neighborhood, hanging out with other kids, he was always involved and always there. And so now as a dad, you know, I like to think that I'm the same way. I hope I'm the same way.
Good. Now, do you have siblings?
I do. I have a younger sister, about 4 years younger than me. I've got 3 nephews, and they're still in Florida, actually pretty close to where I grew up.
Okay. When you were growing up, did you work?
I did. I was really excited to work. We could start working at 14 at the time. I worked for a grocery store called Publix, similar to Kroger, and I really wanted a car. So I knew if I wanted to get a car, I was going to have to save and work for it. So I was pretty excited to work when I was a kid.
What are the values of working when you're a young person?
I think for me, they're the same that they are today. You know, so for me, it's hard work. it's dedication. I think any success that I've had or anything I've accomplished in life has been mostly because of those two things.
Good. What's the worst job you've ever had?
This is a tough one. I think you learn something from every job, and I've done a lot of stuff. I was in retail for a while, and probably most people would say retail is the worst job, right? But I was a grant writer for a couple of years at Habitat for Humanity in DC, and Habitat's a great place, but there's a lot of restrictions on how you raise money, and all of it's tied around the houses being built, how much they're complete, the milestones they hit, and it's very hard because you don't control that as a staff member because they're mostly volunteer built. There was a lot of stress around just raising money for them because you were always relying on a group of volunteers that may or may not have hit those milestones. I just remember it being really stressful.
Okay. What colleges did you attend?
I did my undergraduate at Florida State University and a master's at University of Oklahoma.
Now, how did you end up in Oklahoma?
I never went to Oklahoma, so I earned it as an adult. I was living in DC and they had a satellite campus in DC, so it was a working adult. Actually, my son was young at the time. Earned my master's there through the satellite campus, but I've never been to the main campus in Norman.
All right. And what are your values?
Yeah, it's, like we talked about just a moment ago, really hard work and dedication.
Okay. And your best characteristics?
I'd say being open-minded. I really enjoy deep conversation. I like to be challenged on what I think I know and on my beliefs.
You recently moved to Dearborn. Where else have you lived?
Up and down the East Coast. So, I was born in Florida, obviously. Lived in DC, Maryland and Virginia, and also Connecticut before moving here.
And what positions did you hold along the way?
A bunch. So most of my career is in fundraising. I've done every part of fundraising, major gifts, annual fund, administration, estate planning, you name it. But for a while before I got into the nonprofit sector, I was working on Capitol Hill. So just a little bit in politics before I got into the nonprofit world.
Give us some tidbits from that. Give us some inside information that we're not going to repeat to anybody else.
I think the most interesting thing about working on Capitol Hill and working in DC and being in politics and then moving to somewhere where it's not DC is that it's not particularly political. At least it wasn't when I was there. They call it working on the Hill. It was very much about who you knew, the relationships you established. It was less about being a Democrat or Republican, and it was, in some ways, it felt very much less political than it feels even living in Michigan and other areas, which I think people would be kind of surprised about. It really was who you knew and what you did for them and how you kind of moved around Capitol Hill, but it was less about whether you were, an R or a D.
Would you describe how the issue of integrity was present or not present when you were working on the Hill?
That's a good question.
It's good to have sleeper questions.
Yeah, there's probably both, right? I mean, there's plenty of examples of folks that, maybe I thought didn't have integrity, and there were folks that I thought did have integrity. But what I took away from that really was if you are working for the right things, if you are working with people and treating them with respect, no matter what side of the aisle that they're on, there's a lot that you can get accomplished. And maybe that's different than it is today. I haven't been in DC for a while, but I remember at the time, it was always first about the relationships that you had with folks and how you worked with them and what you were able to get done more so than what side of the aisle you're on.
I love it, yeah. Now, do you have any aspirations of running for office?
I'd like to say no. I feel like the answer is no, but if the right opportunity came around, yeah.
What are the ups and downs of being in office?
I think of it more as pros and cons. The pro is being able, you're in a position to do something great for the people you represent and for your community, right? Which is a huge thing. It's always what's always been attractive to me about, being involved in politics. The con is the time, the dedication, right? To do it right, to do it well, requires a lot of you personally, and it's a very demanding job.
Yeah. Now, who did you work for in Capitol Hill?
His name was Alan Boyd. He was a representative of on the Panhandle of Florida. So maybe a little interesting, speaking of politics, something interesting folks might not know. This is around 2000. At that time, there was a group of folks called Blue Dog Democrats, which I don't think exists anymore. And so Blue Dog Democrats were Democrats that were fiscally conservative, more fiscally conservative. And for him, he probably couldn't get elected in the Panhandle of Florida as a Democrat, if he wasn't fiscally conservative. So he was part of this Blue Dog coalition, which I think is kind of interesting. That doesn't, as far as I know, doesn't really exist anymore. But yeah, he was a great guy. It was a lot of fun working for him. I think he's still alive, but I know he's retired.
Okay. Tell our audience what position you now hold.
So currently I'm the manager of individual philanthropy at the Detroit Zoo, which is just a fancy title for someone who works with high net worth individuals, raising money for our mission and our programs.
Now, little tidbit. You there in the back row, did you know that the Detroit Zoo at one time was supposed to be where the Ford Foundation or Spring Wells is? And they moved it to Royal Oak instead. Just a little tidbit for you.
Yeah, not many people know that.
Right,
yep.
yeah. Now, tell us about the zoo.
So the zoo is a 125-acre campus in Royal Oak. As you mentioned, it moved out there. We've got about 2,000 animals that live at the zoo, representing about 200 species. What a lot of people don't know about the zoo is that Royal Oak is just one campus. We also run the Belle Isle Nature Center in Belle Isle, Detroit, and we do conservation across the globe. One of the things that's pretty cool about the campus in Royal Oak is that 3 of the habitats are the largest habitats in the United States, in any zoo in the United States. That's Harambe, and Harambe's got the gorillas and chimps that live there. That's Arctic Ring of Life with polar bears and sea otters. And then, which maybe viewers would know, is Polk Penguin Center, which is still the largest penguin habitat in the United States.
Do you like animals?
I do, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think you have to. Yeah, you have to.
Tell us a good fundraising story.
It's tough with donor privacy, but I will say, I was thinking about this last night too. There's a lot of cool things that happen around philanthropy, Seeing people at their best, seeing people make gifts and make an impact in the community, at the zoo, or people we serve it's pretty incredible. The folks that I work with, sometimes those gifts will, buy happy, well, actually that single gift can build a habitat, or it can build a building, or maybe an endowment program, right? That's a massive impact. And you bring donors back to the zoo and you show them what they've done. And, sometimes they'll cry. The responses are amazing. And I think, when's the last time someone bought a TV, or a car and they cried about it, So it's just, it's surreal. It shows you how cool philanthropy really is.
Why do people give?
They give because they care about something or they want to make a difference.
Do your animals come from abroad, or are they all basically offspring of animals that lived in the zoo 50 years ago?
A mix. So I think one thing that's helpful to know is that we don't pluck animals out of the wild. I think a lot of people sometimes think zoos just take animals out of the wild. We don't. So all the animals at the Detroit Zoo are either rescued, which means they can't be released into the wild, they're injured, there's something that happened to them, or they were born in captivity. So generally speaking, when an animal is born in captivity, they can't be released into the wild. There are exceptions, amphibians, sometimes reptiles, but larger animals like tigers and lions and polar bears, they can't go into the wild. I think when people see those animals in a zoo, they think, man, they're ferocious, right? And they are, but they're not. They don't have the instincts anymore. They don't have the ability to survive in the wild.
Yeah. Describe some of the fundraising activities that you have at the zoo.
So we do all types of fundraising. There's a kind of a standard set of things that nonprofits do when they raise money. Most people are probably familiar with direct mail. You probably got something in the mail asking for money. So we do direct mail, we write grants, we do a lot of estate planning where donors are leaving gifts to the zoo in their will or other vehicles. We do major gift work, which is the work that I do, where I sit down face to face with folks and ask for what's considered a significant gift, which depends, but they can be, in the multi-hundreds to multi-million-dollar gifts for the zoo. We do.
What's the biggest gift that's ever gone through your fingers, either at the zoo or elsewhere?
I've been involved in a couple of multi-million-dollar gifts. Yeah.
How did they happen to give a gift to you? They just said, "Oh, I think I'll give $1 million to the Detroit Zoo today."
Yeah, it takes a lot of work, right? So at this level, it's relationship building, high-level relationship building. So the type of work that I do when I'm working with donors is I know them personally. I spend time at their homes. Last week I was actually in Florida spending time with the donors that are in Florida over the winter. A lot of my colleagues go to weddings, we go to funerals, right? This is a relationship with folks on a very personal level. And over time, you get to know folks. You know their financial history. You know about their families. You know the things that they want to do with their philanthropy. And, then a gift like that comes around. They're also high net worth folks. So $1 million, $5 million, $10 million gifts are things that they're accustomed to making.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have not yet written my first check for $1 million. All right, Kayne Karnbach is the head of the Dearborn Historical Commission. What do you hope to accomplish in this position? How do you look upon the museum?
I'll answer the question about the museum. The museum is incredible to me. It's so impressive to me, and what's impressive to me is how it tells the story of Dearborn, right? And that's probably a weird thing to say for a city museum as I talk to you about that. But I've always thought, and I think that Dearborn's history is diverse, it's multifaceted, and it can be challenging, I think, to tell the story of Dearborn. And to me, the museum meets that challenge, and it does it really well, and I find that really impressive. Being the chair of the Historical Commission, it means a lot to me. Dearborn is home, and our history, is our story. And so when I think about my position as chair, I see myself as guiding the commission and the members to a place where we can do right for our city's history. I see my work as the work of getting us to a place where we have defined goals, right? A clear mission that's actionable. And so that's what I hope to accomplish.
What is your best Dearborn story to date?
So I've been here since 2019, and when my son and I moved in, we live off Edison in the Ford Historic District. Excuse me. We moved in the morning, and I didn't know anyone, just moving in. But the day we moved in was our Edison block party, the block party. We moved in, finished about mid-afternoon, and I remember that night we were hanging out with my neighbors, making friends. It was like the morning we didn't know anyone, and by the time the evening rolled around, we were at the party with our neighbors and had made a ton of new friends. It was a really nice welcome to the city.
Kayne, what is the worst thing that ever happened to you that made you a better person?
So when I was 18, my father was dying of cancer, and the doctor had come in and said, there was a surgery that he could have gotten, the doctor believed would have saved his life. And so he chose not to do that. And I remember I was pretty angry at the time. You know, I felt like I still needed him in my life, and he hadn't experienced, you know, a lot of the accomplishments and milestones I would hit, graduating college, getting married, becoming a father, you know, meeting his grandson. But over the years, I grew a lot, and you know, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't still hard. It's still really hard, but I came more to understand the decision that he made. So I know it really forced me to grow up a lot and take a different perspective.
Yeah. Kayne, you're a father. What do you like about being a father?
Everything. Everything.
Very good.
Yeah, being a dad is great, you know, and there's nothing better than being called dad, right? It's the best thing in the world, and spending time with my son and watching him grow up is just an absolute privilege.
Very good. And Kayne, what do you want people to say about you when you move to the next life?
Along the same lines, I want to be thought of as a great father.
That is great. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've never done this in the history of this program, but we have Kayne's son. Kayne, come up here. Wave to the camera. Wave to Dearborn. Kayne, hand him your mic for a minute. Tell our audience what you like about your dad.
Well, I think he's a great father, and he's helped me through my life through hardships in school and life. If something's angering me, he helps me with that. So.
Very good. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've now heard the son of the greatest father that we've had on this show. And I think it's just great to have that meaningful relationship reflected here. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the show, tell all your friends and relatives. If you didn't like it, just keep it to yourself. Thank you.